Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Love and Light Show. Your special guest is Tanya, and we're talking about mastering positive body image today. So I'm so excited for this episode. We're going to give you guys some tips to support you in doing that. We're going to talk about how we can release shame and that our body is not tied to our worth. We can have so many more things that are impactful into our lives, and we don't have to focus on our body and negative body image or what society may or may not be telling us or marketing may be feeding us about what, especially as women, to be believing about our bodies. So I'm so excited to get into this awesome episode today. And she's also going to be leading us through a tapping session towards the end so we can release anxiety, especially around eating, so we can be calm and more peaceful in our body. And she's going to share all the other wonderful ways that she can support you in the world, which I'm super excited for. She's part of our Tony Robbins family, which I love, and also a Canadian, which is like super exciting. And she's a transformational coach who helps women to fall back in love with themselves so they can show up fully. So thank you so much for being here today, Tanya.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so honored to be on here with you. It's just such a delight to be able to share and to be able to help so many women. And I really honor what you do. And you've just made such a difference in the world. So thank you for what you do. It's just so beautiful, honestly. And thank you for inviting other women to share and to be able to, we've all got different gifts to give. And I really appreciate the fact that you see that and you see that value that we all share in the world. So thank you for what you do. It's gorgeous.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. That's so sweet. Oh, I love you so much. And everyone who's joining live, definitely say hi as you pop on. We have 2 people live right now, but we can't see you when you're on the Be Live platform. You have to say hi for us to see you, and be sure to say hi on the replay if you're catching us there as well. We love to engage you guys during the show and afterwards. And this is the Love and Light Show, where every Wednesday and Friday at 1 Atlantic, 12 Eastern, and 9 Pacific, we bring you different light workers and healers and heart-centered entrepreneurs to support you on your healing journey so you can be a better and better version for yourself, first and foremost, and also so we can all be the change that we want to see in the world together. And it's so needed, guys. The world and the state that it is right now with Amazon and the climate change that we're having, and just it feels like some days 1,000,002 things that are, quote, not going right in the world right now. It's so important for us to be that change that we want to see in the world. We all have such unique gifts and such bright lights, and it's our responsibility to show up and shine. And I feel like humankind can do so much better. And I really encourage you guys to move forward in your inspired action. Like, that's like the biggest thing that's coming forward for me for like all of my messages recently. It's just like, shine your light. The world needs you. And don't listen to the negative voices that may be in your actual environment or that may be in your head. The world needs you, and we're here to totally encourage you and support you and shine you on this journey as well. And I'm Laura McPhee. I'm a joyful goddess, speaker, healer, and coach, and I absolutely love empowering women through unconditionally loving themselves, releasing and letting go of their limiting beliefs that don't serve them, that say that they're not good enough or pretty enough or smart enough or whatever, fill in the blank enough so that they can be serving the world from that overflowing cup, and they can heal from their past traumas or sexual harassment or violation in any area of their life so that they can show up in a more loving way for themselves in the bedroom, in the real world, and everywhere that they go through, so that they can be living their dream lives now and not putting it off into like someday and forever, and living it right now, because we deserve everything that our heart desires. So I'm so excited to jump into today's show. And Tanya, do you want to share a little bit about your story so that people can know a little bit more about you?
I would love to. Thank you so much for asking. It was something that held me back for a long time and I had a lot of shame about. So it's a really powerful thing for me to be able to step in and to actually share. So I'll give you guys a bit of a backstory. I grew up, I'm the youngest of 3. I've got 2 older sisters. My oldest is 5 years older than me. And I was always like the little engine that could. And it was always very competitive. And in my household, my dad had very high standards. And, this is actually really crazy. But my dad said to my mom before they were married, if you ever gain weight, you're out the door. So imagine me coming into the world, not knowing any of this. That was something that my dad had a lot of value and expectation around. So fast forward, I ended up horseback riding a lot. And when I was about 14, 15, my parents were divorced. And my dad blamed me and the horse for the amount of time and money and all of those things for it. You know, he would call me by my mom's name. So like my, you know, big Lori, little Tanya. So it was just like a lot of energy for me to take on. And I was at a time in my life where it was grade 10, 11, and you know, you're starting to like boys and whatever. And I had this girlfriend that I'd always grown up with, and she seemed to have it all together. She was, you know, she horseback rode. Her parents really supported her, you know, and she was really, you know, slim and athletic. And you know, then during lunch, all of a sudden, she decided that like we just wouldn't eat lunch. So I was like, okay, I guess we don't eat lunch. So I started that too because I felt weird about eating lunch when she didn't. So I was competitively horseback riding. And so right after school, my mom would pick me up and I would go down to the barn and ride probably 3 or 4 horses and, you know, get home and have dinner, or sometimes not. Just like it was so, you know, homework and everything else came after that. So there was all of that. And I was getting to a level of like really showing in the US and competitively in Canada. And at that time, the standard was like a 00. So I was like, I rode with one of the top trainers across Canada, and I wanted to be that. I wanted to be competitive and to win. And so I just was like, okay, well, to be able to be successful, this is what I need to be. I need to be skinny, and I will be happy when I'm thin because I saw my friend who looked happy, right? And so I just started internalizing more, and I just realized that like from about grade 10, 11, I had a really good friend die, and I was just like, for me, it was the way that I kind of coped. It was like, my dad, it was the one thing he couldn't control was how much I ate and my weight. So I started just restricting like crazy, ended up really, really sick with anorexia, and in and out of the hospital. My heart rate was like, I should be dead. It was 28 beats per minute. I'm almost 6'2". I was 99 pounds. It was just really a scary time in my parents' life. And it didn't really, at that point, kind of clue in that I could be dead and I should be dead. And so it just years in and out of hospital. And I always found that group therapy was super destructive. It was like trading tips and tricks about how to get skinny. And, you know, people thought they're like always questioning me about like, well, what diet pills do you take? And I never took anything. And it was just like so bad and toxic. And then, you know, it was like forced into private counseling. And, you know, it was just like a mind game for me because they always felt like I was being interrogated, and it was like I was back with my dad again, you know? So I just was like, this is not working. I don't want to talk about my problems at nausea. And so eventually I got to a point where I wasn't going in and out of hospital anymore. But that's a pattern. There were so many women that were in and out like 8, 10. This is like the 12th time they've been in. And I was just like, the system is not working if people are in and out this many times, right? So I got to a place of like feeling like I was healed. And then I ended up, you know, 10 years later in Tony Robbins, and I was in a car accident. And because of the fact that I was so sick for so long, I ended up having a hysterectomy at 26. My hormones were just all over the map. They couldn't regulate them. And so that was a decision I had to make. And now after this car accident that I had in January, they couldn't figure out why I wasn't healing from sciatic pain, from, you know, nerve pain in my back and my neck and my shoulder. And so it was like a big deep dive for me of like really getting honest with myself. I hadn't healed these traumas. So, you know, like doing like adrenal support and just a lot of self-work. I've really focused in. I'm now at a place that I can help other women shift and love themselves fully and completely, because that's how I feel about myself. So that's a little bit about me.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. And I know it can take so much courage to vulnerably share our past and our struggles. And I love that you've come on the other side and have this deep desire to support other women do the same thing. I absolutely love that. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And Holly said, glad that you share as well. So thank you so
thank you.
much. I love that. So how do you help women shift their positive body image to get to that more loving place?
I think that for me was recognizing like what feeling did I attach to it, and in realizing that I had so much of my own, inner self-blame, shame, all of those things, and I really didn't like myself at all. So I think that really getting to the core and really getting honest with myself about how I felt about myself and why I was um, acting in these, either there were patterns that were just running me for all of these years. I hadn't taken the time to acknowledge them and recognize that that's in the past and I don't have to continue dragging this into the future. So I
Yeah.
think that that was a really powerful thing for me to recognize and understand. And then also, I guess, for how do I shift that is forgiveness was a huge component for me, is like forgiving not only everybody else that I had blamed, everybody's doing the best they can at where they're at, and we're all on a different journey and a path, and being able to love them regardless and not blame them anymore, but also forgive myself. So yeah, there was so many different ways that I just experimented to see what felt best for me. One thing that I did was like write myself a forgiveness letter. Um, and yeah, so that was one thing that I found really, really powerful to be able to shift. That was when I was able to forgive that portion that I really wanted to reject in myself.
Yes. Those are such powerful letters. I know I've done a lot of
Mm,
different ones throughout the years for
it's
myself, and it
amazing.
seems so simple because it's like I'm not doing anything with anyone else. Like it's just like pen and
Mm,
paper, but it's so powerful to just like let the things, especially if we suppress them a lot, to come to
mhm.
the surface and to clear and release them and forgive them and let them go.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then, there's different ways to even, I've shredded them, I've,
Mm,
burned them, and
yeah.
just to let that like really energetically go, it's so
Mhm.
powerful. And I guess, yeah, for sure, I had suppressed so long that I didn't even know that that was there, which was, really crazy.
Yeah. I totally love ripping them up. It feels so satisfying.
Right? It's like there's something about it that is just like, oh my goodness, like, yeah, this no longer like it just you don't have to see the words and feel them anymore. Like it's gone. So
Yeah,
cool.
I
I know,
love
it's like who would have thought that shredding paper was so much fun,
It's like cathartic.
right? So powerful.
That's so awesome. And how do you help people shift away from shame?
Shifting away from shame. Yeah, that's a really powerful one, right? I think that there's been different things that I've done that has helped me shift away from shame.
Mhm,
Um, I've done different types of meditation of like moving energy because it gets stuck down in those like primal chakras. So
mhm,
like, really being able to meditate that out, and also like when we're trapped in like that shame and that blame and that guilt, it's like, what am I not loving in myself? Right? Of like
mhm.
recognizing that if I feel shame for myself, I'm not honoring myself. So what is it? And just like asking myself until it feels true. So it's like, if I feel shame about my body, it's like, why do I feel this shame? It's like because I'm attaching the way that I feel about my body to this feeling, right? So I think for me, it's like you can turn that shame into like, well, what was the gift in this? I
Yeah,
think that when you can see the gift and you're no longer feeling shameful about it, or even I think a powerful one too is like a lot of people think it's like, how do you change it to gratitude? And I think sometimes that's a really massive leap to take of like, what's
yeah,
something that I can appreciate about myself in this moment, right? And it doesn't have to be like from shame to gratitude. Like it's a stepping stone of like, I've had people go, clients say, I don't love myself. And it's like, okay, that's a great place to start, just acknowledging where you're at. And
yeah,
from there, it's like, okay, well, if you don't love yourself, we'll get you there. What's one thing that you like about yourself? You
yeah.
know? So I think that it's just like taking those baby steps and recognizing that just shifting that one little increment at a time is
Mhm.
really a powerful step, right? It's that just it's taking that small inspired action. It doesn't
Mhm.
have to be a quantum leap all the time, right? So
Yes.
that was one thing that I found really powerful because then she felt shame about the fact that she didn't love herself, right? So it's just like,
Right.
okay, we don't have to,
Mhm. And that's so powerful. I'm all about the little baby steps, and it's
Mm,
huge, the compounding effect of it over time, and
mhm,
it's so powerful. I'm also, like, huge into Tony and massive action and all those
mm,
things too, but so many of
absolutely.
the lasting changes from my life has been when I was like, "Okay, I'm just gonna do this and build on this and build on this," and reward
Mm,
myself and, like, celebrate every single step, big
yes.
and small, instead of being like, "This person did it this way," or "This person's doing it quicker, faster,
Mm,
in a different type of way." It's like, my way is so unique and powerful, and I just stay in my lane and trust the process, and
absolutely.
it's that building that can really create those lasting changes over time and be, like, effective instead of when people sometimes are like, "Yeah, I'm gonna do this," and it lasts for a week or maybe a month, sometimes a day.
Absolutely,
So
right? It's those key foundational building blocks, right? And I think that that's a really important thing for people to realize that if you like sometimes, yeah, for sure, I can take massive action as well, but I'm very feminine. And so for me, it doesn't feel natural. I think that, burning the boats and that kind of thing in some circumstances is amazing. And in
Mhm,
other ones, it just isn't necessary. So
mhm.
really trusting, like you said, the process and trusting yourself and your own intuition and
Mhm.
building those key foundational of like every day, like what's 5 things that I can add to, what I like about myself if I can't get to love, right? I think that that's really important. Like, it was like, my client was like, okay, one thing that I like about myself is the fact that I have pets. Amazing. Okay,
Yeah,
that's a great place to start. It doesn't even have to be about you, right? So it's really amazing. And I'm so grateful that we share that.
mhm. Yes, I love that, and it's interesting that in the society that we live in, people tend to want that, like, instant result of, like,
Absolutely.
I come in for, like, a 30-minute call or an hour session or something like that, and it's like, I wanna just be fixed. Like, we're in a
Right?
very instant gratification microwave culture,
Hmm.
and those building blocks are what leads you to that long-term success, even though it might,
Absolutely.
again, take a little bit more intention and energy or investment or whatever that you feel called to putting into it, it'll have
Hmm.
so much more far-reaching effects, I definitely feel.
Absolutely. I mean, the hours that people put in private to be able to show up in public, I think
Yeah.
a lot of people forget that, right? It's like,
Mhm.
people aren't born being Olympic level athletes, right? They don't just show up at the Olympics. It's that
Mhm.
time and it's that consistent daily practice, right? And it's finding what works for you, where it's like, is it waking up and meditating, or do you meditate before you go to bed? It's like trying on different things for size, but recognizing, like, you said at the very beginning, is like not being in society's teeny tiny square box of like
Mhm.
what feels true for you, and
Mhm.
and putting in the work, right? I mean, nobody, I mean, you can't fix me. I have to put the work in. And like the thing is, who is swimming towards you? I saw such a powerful video yesterday. It was like, I want to help everybody, and I know that you do too. And it's like, but we all have to be responsible for our own healing, right? We're
Mhm.
just the vessels in which to guide people, but we all have to be committed to our own healing or
Yes.
not, right? And
Mhm.
either way, it's totally okay.
Yeah.
But if you want to make those progressive steps, you've got to start somewhere, and you've got to be committed to consistently showing up, whether you want to or not.
Mhm, and that's so powerful. I feel like, especially as, like, light workers, when you start
Mm-hmm.
out, I was, like,
Mm-hmm.
wanting to save everyone, and I'd be like, "I'll take any client with any issue, like, theta healing can do so much, like, anyone who walks through my door, awesome," and then it was a really big kind of shifting point for me to see that not all people are ready for it. Not all people want
Yes.
change. Not all people will match the energy and effort that I put in. So that was a big
Mm-hmm.
shift for me as a light worker to be like, okay, I have to be extremely intentional with who I support. And now I have like soul sisters who show up fully and like do the work. And it's like incredible the transformations they get because I've very like strong boundaries on I will match your energy. I'm not pulling,
Mm-hmm.
not like saving anyone anymore. I will support people and guide them on their journey, but it's their personal responsibility for how much energy and effort they're showing up with. And I match it, and it's incredible to like see the changes with that. So I love that personal responsibility that you talk about.
I love that. That was a very powerful share. Thank you for saying that, right? And I think it's really, like you say, to set those boundaries is really, everybody wants to help, right? And I really value that's, you see your own value, right? So that's amazing. So powerful. Thank you for sharing that. It's a powerful message. Thank you.
You're welcome. And the other little piece on shame that was coming through for me is like Brené Brown's work. I love her stuff,
Me
and
too.
shifting it from I am bad, which is the shame, to just like, I might have done something bad today and I can forgive myself for that, instead of internalizing
Absolutely.
all of the things that maybe you're hearing from society or overhearing from other people, instead of being like, yeah, this is me, this is my new identity, being like, no, I just did something out of habit and I'm aware of it and I'm going to shift it.
I love that. Thank you so much for saying that. And it's about forgiveness again, right? It's so powerful where when we identify to that and we are, what we label ourselves with, it's a lot harder to let that go versus like, I made a mistake. I'm human and that's okay. Making a new choice though, right? I think that it's like, there's lessons and blessings in them. So it's like, recognizing that, yeah, maybe I didn't have enough sleep last night and I didn't show up the way that I would have, liked to. So next time I'll decide to get more sleep and make that a priority for me, of like setting those boundaries of what my bedtime requirement for myself is. And that comes back to knowing our own selves. I wish I was somebody that could sleep for 4 hours, and I'm not. I'm 8-10 hours, and I have to be okay with that.
Yes. And like, everyone is so unique. I love that you brought that up. It's like there's no perfect, there's no one size fits all, there's no like map of your life that we're born with. That'd be really cool if we like had car instruction manuals for our human body, but we're not given that. So we have to play with that and figure out what uniquely works for us. So I love that you brought that up.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes, like, for me, it's like, it's exciting to know that I get to figure it out as I go. And what worked for me in my teenage years is probably not going to work, as I continue into my 30s either. So I think that even recognizing we've got different seasons in our lives, and what worked, back then, we've grown, right? Like, we've done a lot of work on ourselves, and sometimes even recognizing that, we outgrow friendships, and we outgrow, careers, and we outgrow different things in our lives, and that's okay too.
Yes.
So cool.
And that's a perfect segue into worth, because our worth isn't tied to our jobs or what we're doing or how we're meeting society's standards or our bodies. So how do you help people to shift out of that state where their worth is fully tied to their body?
I think that there's so many, it comes back to like what you just mentioned with Brené Brown of like, I did something, therefore I am. And I think that, we introduce ourselves, and that's kind of the conditioning that society has kind of placed on us, is like, hi, I'm Tanya, I'm a doctor, or whatever, that's how we introduce ourselves, where it's like, okay, that's what I do to earn an income and a living. Is that really who I am in my core? No. And I think that when we place our worth, it's like when we base external circumstances on who we are and our value and our worth, it's just like, so what happens if you lose that job and you're no longer a doctor? Then what, right? So I think that really coming back to the point of, or what if I was really fit for a lot of years. I was like, and not that it was a healthy thing, but I always was just really, had a naturally fit, athletic, toned body. And, it's put me into now, because I was in that car accident, I really haven't been able to work out, right? So it really came up again for me of like, okay, I tie a lot of worth to my body. Okay, what's that about? So what if I am not as fit anymore? Am I any less valuable as a human being? No, absolutely not. It's my soul that I love, regardless of, my job, my body, or any of those things. And I think that it's like being happy now, right? Giving ourselves permission to be happy now in this moment and to love this moment and not to want to have to change it all the time. I think that, I had a conversation with somebody else and it's like, oh, when I do this or when I do that, when I move, when I, have that relationship, when I, earn that money, when I win the lottery, whatever it is. Okay. So up until that point, then what? And I think too is like recognizing that if we're stuck in that energy and that vibration and that frequency, we're not allowing that to actually show up. And when we show up as if, this is the best and most incredible moment right now is the one that I'm in, that's when we can actually attract the things that we want. And there's nothing wrong with, wanting to go on a fabulous trip or, wanting to marry that incredible partner or whatever. There's nothing wrong with any of that. Until we love this moment and who we are and value that right now, it's really challenging to align vibrationally to attract that into us.
Yeah.
So that's definitely my, feeling on worth and value.
Yes. And I love that you brought that up because it can be so hard to let go of those things. Like I remember when I realized how tied I was to being a perfectionist and a workaholic and a caregiver and like all the things that I used to have in the corporate world and like going through that work with my like life coach and theta healer at the time was so deep and it like was hard to figure out sometimes to be like, what is the difference between me and the things that I've been doing and what society has told me is successful and the money in the bank and all these things. And it was very challenging for me at the beginning to separate those things and to like truly see like I am a soul, I'm worthy of love just by being here. I don't have to like wake up and do anything for anyone else. I don't have to look a certain way. I don't have to anything. I'm loved by being a human being on this planet. And that was like of like upgrade and love for myself. Because then it was like, okay. And one thing that came through that I actually shared a couple times this week with clients is the conscious way that I perceived that when she was going through these steps with me and going through these like one thing that was super supportive was Loving What Is, Byron Katie.
Absolutely.
The truth of these things. And the example that came through for me the strongest that I've been able to like really hold it to was when I was in elementary school. There were children with disabilities that were in our class. And there was a young girl and she was in a wheelchair and couldn't move anything, but she was like this bright, bubbly, laughing, giggly, like ball of joy that just like her mom absolutely adored, her like caregiver like absolutely loved and adored, and she couldn't feed herself, she couldn't ever speak, she couldn't communicate, but she was this little bubbly being of joy. She was never gonna like make money or do anything or talk to them or anything, and they loved her and adored her, and we all loved her and adored her. And it's like, yeah, human beings have value. Our souls are so worthy of love just by existing on this planet. We don't have to do anything for anyone else or fit into those boxes or have the perfect body or any of those things. We can just be loving beings and receive the love that we deserve from a birthright perspective.
That's so powerful. I love that so much. It's so true, right? We can just be, and we are worthy of love just as we are, and we don't have to do anything, right? Like you said, it's so powerful of we don't have to look a certain way. We don't have to act a certain way. We don't have to have all of those things. We are enough just as we are. It's so powerful. That's so amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. It was coming through so strong. And we could talk about this for forever and ever, but let's get into that tapping session so that people can release anxiety, especially you guys can save this. So you can save it on either YouTube and put it up to YouTube later or on Facebook. So you can have this as a tool and resource that when you're ready to release and let go of anxiety and when you're wanting to do that right before you're eating or whenever else that comes up for you, you can have this as a resource.
Absolutely. So it's a really simple. So EFT is emotional. It's like now that I'm talking, it's emotional freedom technique. Yeah, of course, right? Okay, totally blonde moment. Okay, so I'll share with you guys. It's a really powerful tool, and it's really simple. You can take it anywhere you want. So you pick something that you'd like to tap on, and it's always something that you stayed in the positive, but it's something that you want to release. So I've done this with my mom, actually. She eats really quickly. So I will just share eating because that's the work that I do. So um, even though, and you can fill in the blank. So it's always even though, da, 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 da. So even though eating gives me anxiety, I love and I'm like fumbling over words now. I'm so sorry. I deeply and completely accept myself. And some people add love and some people aren't at that point. So you can either say, I deeply and completely accept myself, or I deeply and completely love and accept myself. So there's 10 different points, and I'll just show you really quickly. And before you start, it's a scale of 1 to 10 because you want to bring whatever it is, say it's at an 8, with one round, you want to bring it down, and you just intuitively ask yourself. And you keep going until you can lower that level. So we start off like the 4 points. So it's the karate chop, kind of like, the fleshy part of your hand. So even though eating gives me anxiety, I deeply and completely accept myself. And then we go on to our head. So you can either tap with 4 fingers or pat the top of your head. So I'll just tap with my hand. Even though eating gives me anxiety, I deeply and completely accept myself. And then it's the point right an inch above your nose on the brow point. So you could do it either side. I'm going to do it on my right side. Even though eating gives me anxiety, I deeply and completely accept myself. And then it's just right on the side of your eye and the orbital bone. Even though eating gives me anxiety, I deeply and completely accept myself. And then it's 1 inch below your pupil. Even though eating gives me anxiety, I deeply and completely accept myself. And then it's right between your nose and your upper lip. Even though eating gives me anxiety, I deeply and completely accept myself. And then it's just between your lower lip and your chin. Even though eating gives me anxiety, I deeply and completely accept myself. And then it's the point in your collarbone. So you can either do it with, the side, or you can knock. So I'll just knock and then I get both points. So even though eating gives me anxiety, I deeply and completely accept myself. And then it's right under your arm. So it's like women for our bra straps. So kind of sit up. So then you tap again. Even though eating gives me anxiety, I deeply and completely accept myself. And then I would test myself again. Okay, so that round, maybe I started with an 8. Now I'm down to a 6. And you keep going until you're down to 0. So yeah, it's really powerful.
And I love the checking in too, because then you can be like, oh, okay, this is how I tend to show up in my life.
Exactly.
Like, I didn't realize that I was at like a 10 out of 10 for anxiety in this area. It's like, ooh, that's interesting. And then
Absolutely.
judging it, being like, I have something that I can use to support me in this.
Absolutely. It's like, it's the acupuncture points, right? So it's really neat without needles, which is amazing. And you could do it for anything, if you have anxiety flying, or, you're feeling like your foot is sore, or any of those things. It just needs to be that positive, like, even though I have this, and then you get to just love and accept yourself deeply and completely. It's pretty magical.
Yes. Oh, I love that so much. Thank you for sharing.
You're so welcome.
And how can people connect with you after the show?
You can reach me on a couple different platforms. So on Facebook, I've got a group that I would love to have all of you join. It's Mastering Positive Body Image for Professional Women. I have a website that I'm just getting up and running, which is bodypeace.ca. You can reach me via email at tanya@bodypeace.ca, and find me on Facebook or Instagram at Tanya Ritchie. So Ritchie. So yeah.
Awesome. And can you put those in the comments after the show so people can just click on them?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
I would
Thank you
love to.
so much. And I
Thank
appreciate your
you.
time and all the work that you're doing in the world. It's so needed. And women have
Thank you.
to start prioritizing their health and to be like, okay, this is what's happening in my life, and especially what's happening in the world right now. Like, I keep reading all these different Instagram stories and posts around, like, especially as women, it's our responsibility as adults to heal ourselves, to take
Mhm.
responsibility, to heal ourselves first and foremost, and then to help another woman, help another man, help someone else so that we can shift the lifestyle that we're living, so that we can have more love for each other and a planet that we're living on, so that we can have it livable in future generations
Absolutely.
and ideally thrivable in future generations. And it all starts with ourselves. So if you guys are feeling called to releasing and letting go of those things and getting support, I encourage you to reach out in every single way that you feel called, because the world needs it and you deserve this new level of love and support in your life.
Thank you. I so appreciate that. I can't wait to connect with all of you.
Yes. Oh, I love it so much. And I'm sending you guys all so much love and light and hope you have a wonderful weekend. Bye.
Bye.